Hey everyone, welcome back. American Otaku Inc. Honda Rebel Rehab build, day two, or part two. So, there is something that I noticed when Chris was over here originally and we were going through stuff, and his spark plugs didn't have any anti-seize on them. Now, he said that he had just changed the spark plugs, so wasn't that worried about it. But here's the thing, people, if you don't know this, all right, you're talking about a spark plug that's threaded into a hole into the cylinder head that's right here. So, over the lifetime of a bike, you're talking about something that gets hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold all the time. And if it's steel to steel, it can weld itself to the cylinder head because it does get that hot. I've seen it happen. It's not fun to deal with, and it's a real pain in the ass to try and get out. And most times, or at least sometimes, but most times you can't, and you have to completely scrap the thing and buy a completely new head. It's been known to happen. So luckily it hasn't happened with this. Now I don't know if it's an aluminum cylinder head. I mean, the easiest way to test that is with a magnet, but I'm not going to bother with that. So um, now before we get started, I am going to tell you this: if you're dealing with small parts, you need something to hold your small parts in. And I know people are like, well, go to the store and buy this tray and da 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 da. If you're talking about just a couple, like a small handful of small parts, like not even a handful, but like two or three, there's something you already have in your house that cost you $3 to get, and you can reuse multiple times. And it's perfect for doing this exact thing. And if you're curious as to what that is, it's this: an egg carton. Literally, just chop the top of it off, chop the closing flap of it off, and you have a parts tray. It's that simple, it's that easy, and if it gets broken or busted, not that big a deal. You just throw it away because you will eventually get another carton of eggs at some point. So, there you go. Pro tip. All right, so before we get started, um, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need some anti-seize, obviously, and you're going to need a socket wrench. Now, all right, so what this is a 3/8 sized socket wrench with a 6-inch extension, because you're going to need it to get over the gas tank and give yourself some wiggle room for length. And then the appropriate spark plug socket, not a normal socket, a spark plug socket. They make them specifically to take out spark plugs, is a 5/8 spark plug socket. All right. Now, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the thing out, and I'm only going to do one side because if you do one side, it's the exact same steps and procedures for doing the other side, and you don't need to see me do both sides. That's pointless. All right. So here's what we're going to do. So tray for parts, put it right there. Scoot over here so that way you can see what I'm doing. All right, so remember, basic rule of mechanics with a socket wrench or a screwdriver or what have you: righty tighty, lefty loosey. So it's already on loosen. So you pull the spark plug boot and you just kind of leave it sitting there. It's fine. Now the CDI is not supposed to be hanging like this. I'm waiting on the CDI rubber boot to get here so I can mount it back up under the frame where it's supposed to go. So just ignore it. It's fine. Don't worry. So, all right. So break it loose. Take the wrench off, or the socket wrench off, and just spin it out by hand. It'll eventually come loose. And then when it does, it'll either come out in the socket or you just have to pull it out by hand. So here is the spark plug. And it's actually in really good shape, so there's no need to replace them or do anything. Now, like I said, there was no anti-seize on these. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Now, anyone who knows anything about mechanical materials or anything like that, they know that anti-seize is gray. Now, I don't use anti-seize in the strictest sense of the word. I use copper slip. Now, what copper slip is like this. It straight up looks like liquid copper. Now, um, the reason why I prefer to use copper slip is simply for one reason. It does the same exact thing as uh, anti-seize, except for one specific thing. It actually tolerates heat at a higher temperature. Okay, anti-seize runs to about, if I remember correctly, like 1600 degrees. Copper slip runs to 18. Like here, I have a big jar of it so you can see. So right here where it says service rating, right there, 1800 degrees Fahrenheit or 982 degrees Celsius if you run on European temperature stuff. All right, so and see, look right there, it says pure copper anti-seize lubricant. Okay, it's still anti-seize, it's just copper anti-seize, but anyone who knows anything calls it copper slip. So now here, if you've never done spark plugs, then I'm going to help you out here. All right, so when you're doing a spark plug, I'm going to try and hopefully this thing will stay in focus a little bit. You do not need to gob the entire bloody thing up. Literally that much. That's all you need, okay? And then you just spin it around with your finger, get it in the majority of the threads. Here. It's not in focus that well, I'm sorry, y'all. But you get the idea. So, there you go. Now you can see it a little bit better. But yeah, so in the threads, you don't need 100% perfect coverage, okay? It's not that big a deal. You just need to get enough of it on there to where it'll work its way through all the threading. And it's that simple. Now, if you're wondering why I'm using this little thing instead of this big ass jar of copper slip, that's because a friend of mine gave me this. So I just happen to have this one in my toolbox, the small one. So I'm going to use this first and then pour off whatever's left into this jar. So yeah. So anyway, so put copper slip on the threading of the spark plug and make sure you do not get any on that electrode. That little section right there, do not get any in that area, okay? Okay, because that can cause catastrophic problems possibly, and that's not something you want. All right, so now when you're putting the spark plug back in, one thing, you can either do it by hand if you have the room to do it, or you put it back into the socket snugly and use that to kind of guide it into the hole and twist slowly to make sure that it grabs. All right, so all right, and I think I've got it in. Yeah, I've got it in. All right. Now here's the thing. If you start running it in and it goes tight all of a sudden before it bottoms like it's supposed to, stop. Don't go any further. That means you're fixing to start cross threading. And what that means is you'll start stripping out your threads in your cylinder head. That's not a good thing. Okay, so stop, back it out, kind of work it around a little bit and try to run it in again. And it should just feed right on through. So once it does, and once it stops, what you want to do, put your socket wrench on it, let it go hand tight by hand when you're spinning it in, and then go about an 1/8 to a 1/4 turn more. That's it. That's all you got to do. Then put the boot back on it. You'll hear it click. Hopefully you heard that. And that's it. So that's one side done. Now I'll do the other side off camera. It's the same exact procedure, no different. So that's how you do a spark plug if you don't know how. And this was needing to be done anyway, so I figure I might as well go ahead and do it and do a video. So at least that way y'all can see, you know, some of the process that has to go into doing stuff like this. Now this is something simple. It's something that anyone can do, and copper slip, like a tube of it that's maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches long, costs like all of somewhere between $6 to $10 at Advanced Auto Parts, O'Reilly's, Napa, AutoZone. All 4 of those stores have it. You can find it anywhere. It doesn't matter. If you say, hey, I need some anti-seize, or hey, I need some copper slip, they know exactly what you're talking about, and they'll go and grab one off a shelf, and you can get out the door in like less than a couple of minutes. It's simple. All right, so hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. You know, knowledge is always useful. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe if you like what you saw, and you know, tell your friends, whatever. So man, it feels good out here. Okay, so I will see you in the next one, and I will tackle something else. So far on the build, I've gone through $125 worth of small parts and materials. Now, I know that seems like a lot, and it is, don't get me wrong, but some of this stuff is like, you know, primer, spray paint, clear coat, nuts, bolts, small parts, basic parts, copper slip, scissors, egg carton trays. I don't count that, but you know, hey, you still have to spend $3 to get it, you know, and it's already in the fridge, but whatever. And then, you know, shop rags and stuff like that. So it adds up, but you know, you take that into account with anything that you do. So that's what my total build cost is at right now, and that includes getting the manual that I bought for this bike, so that way I can go through like other stuff and figure out how stuff's, you know, situated and how it should be from the factory. So that being said, yeah, and that's one thing I want to make sure that y'all know. If you work on a machine, regardless if it's a motorcycle, a scooter, a car, a truck, whatever, and you're gonna work on it yourself, buy the service manual, okay? If you can't get the factory service manual, that's fine. You can go get one from Haynes, from Chilton, from any of those aftermarket service manual companies. And some of the auto parts stores sell manuals, not for motorcycles, but they do for cars. For motorcycles, you have to get them online through eBay or through Amazon. You can find them. Don't worry. If a bike has been made, there is a service manual for it, period. So make sure you have the service manual before you start working on something, because if you don't, you could possibly screw something up, and it could be something that costs you a butt ton of money in the long run. Okay? Dog. Okay. So see you next time, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it.